Bismillah, alhamdulillah, thumma salatu wassalam ala man la nabiyya ba'da. This is a continuation of our discussion on Malik fiqh, and then I took a decision to go through the usul of Imam Malik. And then I picked the basic text, which is the Matn of Ibn Abi Ghufa, which sort of enumerates the usul with which usul that Malik appeals to derive rules from the Quran and the Sunnah. And in here he mentioned 16 of those usul. Alhamdulillah, alladhi qad fahama دلائل شر العزيز علماء ثم الصلاة والسلام أبدا على النبي هاشمي أحمد وآله غري والصحابة الكرام وتابعين لهم وعلى الدوام. I talked about this intro in I think the second video also. And then after saying أدلة مذهب مذهب الأغر مالكني إمام ستة الأشر, and the usul that Malik appeals to is 16. And then he started enumerating them. The first 6 he mentions are actually what has to do with what we call in usul fiqh dalalatul alfaz. This is very close to what we would call semantics, but I think indications of the text, it's a better explanation or a better way of putting it, so to say. Or if you can have some like legal semantics, if there's such a word in English language. Anyway, the first 3 stanza or 3 couplets, I don't know. I mean, it's a versified form of this of the usul of Malik. Scholars usually prefer the versification of text because versified forms of the text of the sciences are easier to memorize for students. So, in the very first 3 of this of his enumeration, he's talking about the dilalatul alfaz min haythu quwwati dalala, from the angle of the strength of the indication of the text of the Quran and the Sunnah. You may have varying strength of indication, right? And then he started by the highest one. Nasul kitabi thumma nasu sunnati man lahu atamu minnati. Said the very first one is a nas of the Quran, a nas of the Sunnah. What do we mean by nas? Nas means that a categorical text that is unequivocal. It has only one meaning. Scholars do not differ when it comes to text of the Quran and Sunnah of this nature, right? Like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about those who do Hajj Tamattu. If you do Hajj Tamattu, you have to bring a sacrificial animal, your Hajj. If you don't have it, Allah says you have to fast 10 days. 3 during the Hajj. فَصِيَامُ ثَلَاثَةِ أَيَّامٍ في الحج وسبعة إذا رجعتم تلك عشرة كاملة. 3 during the Hajj, 7 when you get back home. تلك عشرة كاملة. That makes 10. You will not find a scholar argue about this, right? Because this is very clear and categorical, unequivocal. So when we talk about the text of the Quran and Sunnah from the angle of the strength of the indication of these evidences, the very first one is what? An-nusus ash-shar'iyyah. The nas shari. It has only one meaning and it is unequivocal. Right after this, we have the dhahir. وَظَاهِرُ كِتَابِ وَظَاهِرُ مِنْ سُنَّةِ مَنْ بِفَضْلِ كُلِّ سُنَّةِ مَنْ بِالْفَضْلِ كُلِّهِ قَمٍ. Then the next one is the dhahir. The dhahir of the Quran or the dhahir of the Sunnah. So I give an example. The dhahir of the Quran, the dhahir means linguistically apparent. Right, the apparent. So when you have a word, right, the dhahir is technically defined this way. That you have a word that has 2 meanings. أحدهما أرجح من الآخر. And one of this meaning is apparent. It comes easier to the. It's how do I put it? It's the apparent word. It comes easier to the mind. This is what will come to your mind immediately you hear this word than the other meaning. So this one, the apparent text is called the dhahir, right? The scholars agree that it is compulsory on us to follow the dhahir until an evidence indicates otherwise. When an evidence indicates otherwise, this is called the mu'awwal, right? So basically, this is the 3 ways of categorizing the text when it comes to the strength of the evidence. The nas, as I said, only one meaning. The dhahir, 2 meaning, one of them is apparent. And then the mu'awwal is the less apparent meaning that has been strengthened by outside evidence. I'll give an example for the nas. So let me give an example for the dhahir. Take for instance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever Allah commands something, right? أقيم الصلاة مثلا, or the Prophet said, uh, um, or do this or do that, يعني بين أذانين بين كل أذانين الصلاة, or the Prophet says, صلوا كما رأيتموني أصلي. Any instruction to do a particular thing, right? It is ظاهر في الوجوب, right? That instruction means that the ظاهر, the apparent, is that it is compulsory on us to do it. But instructions, commands of the Prophet and commands of Allah and His Prophet actually يحتمل معنيين, carry two meanings. They are either an instruction that indicates compulsion, that said act being required is obligatory, or it is highly encouraged, right? فالأوامر تحتمل الوجوب وماذا والاستحباب. So also an example is that Allah was talking about the tawbah of the person who did dhihar. Dhihar is a form of jahili type of talaq, whereby the man would say that his wife is like one of the females in his family that he cannot cohabit with. And then how does one expite? It says, for it'amu sitina miskina. Miskin in this verse, the dha'ir is that it means poor people. But miskin also has another meaning, well-made. But the meaning that comes straight to our mind is a poor person. So we fit 60 people, fit 6 people as expiation for the dhihar. So this is an example of the dha'ir. So also an example of the mu'awwal, Allah says, innamal mushrikuna najas, that the mushrikun are impure. But does that mean that if I shake a mushrik, if I hug a mushrik, I have to take my bath? No. The dhahir is that yes, they are impure, but we have other evidences that pushes the dhahir away and brings forth the fact that Allah is actually using that najas figuratively. It doesn't mean that literally they are impure. So because this lesser meaning, this figurative meaning of impurity is the strongest, we'll call this the mu'awwal, because it's strengthened, we do ta'wil of it. It is strengthened by other evidences giving it strength above the dhahir. So here we would pause here because I don't want the videos to be short. And so what we've done is that when it comes to dalalatul alfaz, when it comes to the indications of the text, when we look at it from the angle of the strength of that particular text indicating a meaning, it may be a nas. The nas means that there is no other interpretation, it is only one. It may be a dhahir. There are two interpretations, one is stronger than the other, and the stronger is called the dhahir. And then we have the mu'awwal, as I gave the example. I hope this is clear. Till the next installment. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.